In his New Year's address, Greenland's Prime Minister called for independence from Denmark and the removal of the shackles of the colonial era, boosting the Arctic islands' long-running mission for independence at a time when the attention of Donald Trump has brought Greenland into the spotlight. So in this video, we're going to explain Greenland's ongoing push for independence, why it wants it, what the challenges could be, and how it could happen. Dive deeper into politics with our magazine Too Long. Yes, we make a real physical magazine. Find out more by clicking the link in the description. The obvious place to start is with a quick look back at Greenland's history and the path it took to its current status as an autonomous territory in the Kingdom of Denmark. Greenland has been inhabited for thousands of years, with several waves of Inuit migrations onto Greenland, stretching from 2500 BCE to the 11th century. Greenland's current Inuit population, which makes up a little less than 90% of the total population, is descended from the most recent Inuit migration, which reached Greenland by the 13th century. Settlements of Norse people from Iceland and Norway had begun to be established by the late 10th century. But while this Norse society survived for more than 400 years, by the beginning of the 16th century, Greenland's Norse settlements had declined and disappeared, with the increasingly cold climate often cited as one of the possible reasons. So how did Greenland actually end up in Danish hands? Well, in 1721, the United Kingdom of Denmark-Norway approved the founding of a trading company and Lutheran mission for Greenland, which effectively kick-started the island's colonial period. And it remained a Danish colony until 1953, when it was integrated into Denmark as a county. But over the following decades, Greenland would continue on a path towards greater autonomy. It was granted home rule in 1979, meaning that it gained some autonomy, while Denmark kept responsibility for things like foreign relations, defence, constitutional affairs, currencies, and the legal system. Since then, Greenlanders have made clear a desire for greater autonomy, with independence as an eventual goal. Pro-independence parties have consistently won elections, and in a 2008 referendum, 75% of Greenlandic citizens voted in favour of the Act on Greenland's Self-Government, which expanded the island's autonomy, with greater control over the police, courts, coast guard, mineral resource activities, and many other areas. The Act also recognised Greenland's right of self-determination, and established that the decision regarding Greenland's independence shall be taken by the people of Greenland, i.e. through a referendum, which, if successful, would kickstart negotiations between the Greenlandic and Danish governments with a view to deliver independence. Since the Self-Government Act was enacted, Greenlanders have consistently continued to elect pro-independence governments, most recently in 2021 when pro-independence parties won a combined 80% of the vote. But it's worth taking a moment to explain why the idea of independence has such strong support in Greenland. In many ways, it's not all that surprising. Greenland has a distinct identity with its own language, culture, and so on. It also has clear geographic boundaries and is geographically distant from Denmark. On top of this, for many Greenlanders, independence would not only secure Greenland the powers and responsibilities that it still lacks, but would also finally mark an end to the long colonial history that has involved much maltreatment over the years. But if Greenland has consistently elected pro-independence governments, why hasn't it happened yet? While there is majority support for independence, the main obstacle is the fact that Greenland hasn't really been ready for independence. So independence advocates generally see it as a future goal to be worked towards with careful planning. And as such, the last half-century has seen a series of revisions and expansions of Greenland's governing rights and responsibilities. But the greatest challenge to a would-be independent Greenland is the economy. With a population of just 56,000 people spread across a huge, icy, rugged island, the Greenlandic economy is understandably small and pretty vulnerable. Domestic fisheries are the island's primary source of revenue, and a block grant from Denmark of more than $500 million per year constitutes roughly a fifth of Greenland's GDP and half of its public budget, which it would lose if it became independent. The block grant's proportion of GDP is falling though, and there are areas of potential growth. For example, the incumbent Greenlandic government wants to boost the tourism industry. And then there's Greenland's significant deposits of rare earth metals that are becoming more accessible as a result of melting ice, which is also opening up the Arctic shipping routes past Greenland. So with that in mind, is independence finally on the horizon? Well, there has certainly been some progress in the matter over the past few years. In 2023, after 6 years of work, Greenland's parliament unveiled a draft constitutional report, seen as a step towards independence. And as we mentioned at the start of this video, in the Greenlandic Prime Minister's New Year's address, he said that it was time to remove the shackles of the colonial era, adding that Greenland's current relationship with Denmark had not created full equality. He pointed to the draft constitution and the legal basis for achieving independence set out in the 2009 Self-Government Act, saying that work has already begun on creating the framework for Greenland as an independent state. Going on to say, it is necessary to take major steps. The upcoming new election period must, together with the citizens, create these new steps. Now, Greenland has a general election due by April of this year, so some see his comments as hinting at him holding an independence referendum alongside the election. However, this would only be a step towards independence, as if successful, the referendum would open up negotiations between Greenland and Denmark, and any agreement would need the approval of the Greenlandic and Danish parliaments, and the Greenlandic people, so there's still a lot of work to be done. And at this point, we should probably mention the elephant in the room, Donald Trump. You'll know by now that Greenland, already the site of a US airbase, has seemingly become a bit of an obsession for the former and incoming president, who wants to see Greenland become part of the United States. Now, Trump offered to buy the island from Denmark in 2019, but was rebuffed by the Greenlandic and Danish governments. Having rekindled and ramped up his public desire for the island in the past few weeks, he has once again been rebuffed, with the Greenlandic Prime Minister saying that Greenland is ours. We are not for sale and will never be for sale. We must not lose our long struggle for freedom. Ultimately, the interest from Trump goes to show that an independent Greenland would not simply be left alone to quietly do its own thing, but would almost certainly be a geopolitical hotspot owing to its strategic location and valuable resources. Would an independent Greenland join NATO? Would the US retain its military outposts on the island, or could other militaries gain a foothold? Which countries would invest in Greenland's infrastructure, and which companies would gain access to the island's resources? These are just a few of the questions that the world's powers will be considering as Greenland continues its push for independence. And this is just one of many power struggles we expect to see play out in 2025, as Trump enters office and global dynamics shift. The question is then, who will come out on top? Who is the world's most influential person? That's what we're trying to find out with our official most influential person list, which we need your help with. So if you want to help us decide on who the most influential person in the entire world is, then you can click the link in the description to cast your own ballot for your personal top 10, helping to shape the overall ranking. And your vote is super important, but voting closes on January 15th. So do your democratic duty and cast your ballot for the world's most influential person. Also, if you're wondering why we're doing this, it's for the next issue of our magazine Too Long. That's because our next issue will contain the entire list, as well as fascinating articles about the top 25. Those won't just be boring profiles about each of the people either. There'll be interesting stories about who these people really are, where their power truly resides, and how they wield their influence. If you want to pre-order a copy of the magazine, you can do so by clicking the link in the description. Oh, and if you pick up a premium copy of the magazine, you'll also get access to our internal awards ceremony, where the team will first learn and react to your votes live. Plus, you'll also get to watch TLDR team members sit down to discuss their own personal lists, fight it out, and try and agree for once. You'll also get access to our behind-the-scenes podcast, The Bullpen, and get your name printed in the thank you section of the magazine. Anyway, to find out more, cast your vote, or order a copy, you can click the various links in the description.